Hi, everybody. I'm here drinking instant coffee, getting pretty cranked. Evidently, there are some new things happening on Twitter. It's something called economy blah blah blah. We have like a threat from a potential juvenile who's threatening a 9mm. I don't know anything about guns, but evidently a secondary gun threat, and the other one was from Binksy's ex or some guy she dated for 3 weeks till she found out he was lame. And she's some hot formerly Portland Antifa girl. So 2 gun threats in 2 weeks is a bit much, but hopefully it's an idle threat. And I've asked Farley to come over here and show us his hair, but he's aware that this camera is getting some mirror surveillance. So economy blah 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 is talking about Nick Lee econbrkfst hating women. And I do think we need more criticism of the internalized misogyny that happens in trans communities. And I think I don't really, I don't know, I don't have much to say actually about this econbrkfst other than I'm just blocked about everybody. Hi, Brandon. You're warming up to the camera, are you? So you dug this out of a dumpster? Where'd you find this? You just found this somewhere? You went shopping for me, didn't you?
Yeah, in the Northwest District, Alphabet District.
It had like a price tag of $100. I think that was completely overpriced. It's Ellen Fisher. It's like a plus size model kind of a brand, but I think it looks kind of sexy in a way.
Yeah, especially when you do that.
So we've got a lot of plans going on. We're talking about legal things, political things, computer things. Twitter is just highly irrelevant. Remember when MySpace just really faded?
Yes, I was there for that.
Yeah. Twitter is like the new MySpace. It's hard. It's traumatic. I miss Twitter.
I think Twitter's still thriving. Just people are abusing it, and there really hasn't been a better source of communication for all the outcasts since then.
Well, yeah, its freedom and transparency was great, but they're basically being hit. In a way, I kind of feel sorry for Twitter because they're operating with like a duality of, well, for instance, okay, if Donald Trump says something offensive, we want to keep a record of that because it's historical. Whereas if Joe Blow says something offensive, they might delete or lock the account or enforce a censorship. So there's kind of this double-edged, like double standard of what is censorable.
That's right. And maybe the Twitter bots, the Twitter safety bots, can't determine what is true hyperbole.
Yeah, sarcasm and hyperbole, which are the hallmark of the Gen Y. Yeah. You guys, that's how you handle the stress.
What I don't get is you can't say hyperbolic statements, but there's rap videos, rap music all over the internet, which talks about gangster killings and like, there's so much violence and almost rapey, like, misogynistic, calling women bitches and all this other stuff. Like, but when I make a little statement, in defense of someone who's attacked my family, and and it's also, mind you, via direct message. That means Twitter's monitoring my direct messages.
It's true.
Then they take away my years of hard work, which encompassed like 1,000 original videos that was released on Twitter, and now it's just gone. People can't, many of them went viral. The president talked about my videos, so I think for a historical archive, they should at least keep up the videos and maybe take away whatever hyperbolic statement was made or whatever faulty tweets polluted their system.
Right, and in this kind of, it really all reached a pinnacle where in mocking the hyperbolic sarcasm of the anti-fascists, you mocked them back, and your mockery was perceived as a direct threat, which no one was to know. They might have suspected you were this particular type of radical, but it was parody, which was misunderstood. Parody.
And echoing parody of me receiving countless death threats, countless threats against my life, and saying that they'll ruin my housing, they'll ruin whatever I have, which is very little. They just want to take it all away as make me their trophy piece. And yeah, when I finally have had enough, and there is a boiling point, I said something to try to get them to back off of talking about such sensitive issues as my family, trying to make it personal.
Well, I mean, on the bright side, you turned 32 yesterday. You have a beautiful young life ahead of you. You have a lot of skills. You have a lot of intelligence. Like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know what happened to my MySpace from when I was 30. Like, I'm like, ugh, I don't remember what was on it, but I barely had. So, I mean, it will recede into infinity, and it is tragic, but.
Well, I still have the videos. If anything, they've allowed my YouTube to grow, and now that I have these hundreds of videos at my disposal, I can just release them on YouTube and keep growing from there. It's like I was almost flatlining with Twitter. In fact, even lowering my followers over the last few months, kind of steadily. So it's kind of a wake-up call, realizing that I needed to shift platforms.
Right, and I've seen this happen before with other people who have been censored off Twitter, is that, like, Lisa Margaridge had an incredible YouTube channel of long-form lectures, basically encapsulating her economic and social theory research in conjunction with her studies at London School of Economics, where her work as a social worker mixed with her high level of education were blended into a format that is not being censored, and YouTube is allowing her to express her views. Even if I don't agree with them all, I really support her ability to express herself, and she was one of my favorite people on Twitter who got completely censored over and over again. I didn't agree with her, but I supported her right to say things. That's like that's what it used to mean to be progressive. Like, it kind of grossed me out when, like, ACLU would be standing up for the rights of nauseating and repulsive people to say they're nauseating things. So, yeah, Twitter. I guess whoever's running economy, blah, blah, blah. For the record, when I said I peed my pants, I did not mean that metaphorically or figuratively or humor-wise. I meant I really did. And I think you can pee your pants through fear, disgust, loathing, shock. There are many reasons why one might pee one's pants. And I was walking towards the clam chowder place in Seaside. And I looked on I was going to actually take a JPEG of the ocean to put on Twitter. And then I just suddenly saw this account. And for the record, I think the concerns Econ Breakfast has with anti-Semitism, that was a trope I sort of noticed. And people maybe are insensitive as to how anti-Semitism plays out, but I think Econ Breakfast has the right to feel offended by the caricature. But then again, I don't know. I think basically there's a lot of warfare between different communities. Like, I really don't like seeing a black associate being pitted against a Jewish associate and having this fight to the death. It's very painful, and I don't know how to react to someone who's anti-racist, except to say, like, why don't we respect each other, or respect all genders, or respect, I don't know. What do you think, Farley? Am I trapping you?
I think there's a lot of race baiting going on between both sides. It's really, one person wants to say that they're not a racist by calling the other person a racist, and it's just this infinite loop of calling each other things that aren't necessarily true, to defend a position that is pretty much a false position, unless...
Right, and is it also, too, that, like, in terms of outreach, if there could be outreach, like, say somebody is being insensitive, like, say I'm being insensitive, whatever happened to outreach? And this is what I'm noticing about these so-called, like, militant Antifa, is they're about pillory and, like, get the guillotines out, kill them, they're convicted and tried of being a fascist, but they're not saying, hi, can I help you? Like, can I help you understand my perspective? And I feel like that's what I really object to, is this deeply ineffective, judgmental, kind of violent, like, I get the whole, like, punch the fascist, or there was that viral punching of the fascist, but they've taken it so far that they are an extrajudicial kind of, like, surveillance state secret police that you can be tried in absentia for crimes you didn't commit and be terrorized and put on a hit list. And I mean, that's what you were pointing out, Farley. It took me a long time to understand that. I mean, there are death threats on your road right now. On like
Kill
parking.
Farley is literally outside my apartment, and they've had to remove some more graffiti and giant letters on my electricity box. Fuck Brandon Farley, for all the neighbors to see. For my property manager to question me about.
Right, and that's housing discrimination, guys. You are violating federal laws when you are terrorizing people out of their housing or terrorizing them because of their disabilities. So pointing that out to people like Econ Breakfast, who wants to disaffiliate from the terror that, like, we have the 9mm gun threat, you had the gun threat from whoever who wanted to spill blood, who's taking pictures. What was that guy's name? Do you remember? Okay, so like this. Can we see this? This type of stuff is out there. And we've got Econ Breakfast tweeting about you every 5 seconds. And here's a picture of me just kind of absorbing this content of this terroristic message. It's really deeply offensive to me in terms of what I've studied with the repression of journalists overseas. Like, Jamal Khashoggi was taken into the Turkish embassy, dismembered and hacked to death with a bone saw because they did not like his journalism. That was a murder, and it was Saudi sponsored. And if I say that on YouTube, maybe that makes me a target of somebody. And the whitewashing of that type of criminal mindset, like the murder of Anna Politkovskaya in her elevator of her building, that's the kind of stuff I study and research. Whatever Farley thinks or says, or who his friends are, or what his videos are about, is largely irrelevant to the notion of what our nation was founded on, was freedom of speech. Like, not you are murdered for your freedom of speech. And that is totalitarianism and fascism. And fascism billing itself as anti-fascism is just a whitewashed lie to me. And I'm very caffeinated on instant coffee, so I'm not normally this hot-headed. I've been drinking a lot of green tea. But it's deeply upsetting. It's sad that that's what Portland has come to, because I think a lot of peaceful negotiation and resolution could be waged. Like, wars could be de-escalated.
That's right. I'm willing to have an open dialogue, even with the people who have threatened my life. I want to understand why they hate me that much, or why, maybe I am doing things that are overly offensive, and I would like to know under the a healthy context, not I'm going to kill you lens, or nobody's ever actually told me this is why I'm offensive, and this is who I'm offensive to, and this is why I should stop. It's like, oh, I'm a shithead, I'm a terrible person, die.
And Farley, I hate to jump in and say this, but I think the identity politics are the actual crux of things. You have a very precise and proper way of speaking, which indicates that you had a good education, and that makes people deeply jealous, and it inspires class warfare. And it doesn't matter how broke you are, or if you're, whatever, not financially solvent, you are reeking of class, and that class is a red flag to them to punish you, or perhaps your leadership skills, or your intelligence, or your courageous attitude towards standing up to their bullying further inflames them, because they are deeply seeking a leader, but they're also seeking a leader to depose or guillotine or unseat. So it's evoking, to me, hundreds of years of trauma, of programming of they must unseat you, possibly because you have that leadership and that eloquence.
And I truly haven't even taken a position of leadership yet. I don't command an army. I release videos that are funny, and really they're giving me more power than I actually have. Right,
and that's where they're actually self-defeating, and maybe they will realize that one day, if they're smart enough to.
Yep. Got a little construction happening on the building, some renovation. So a little bit of noise interruption.
Yeah, you know what I've noticed about power dynamics, generally speaking? I was in a situation where there were the people in power. There was the person in the lowest amount of power who was the janitor, but the janitor had the most leadership skills. he had the charisma of like Barack Obama. He could just walk into a room and dazzle people. He had this easygoing, kind, magnanimous, lovely energy. And I was like, how can you be the lowest on the totem pole, but you're the person I respect the most, and I respect your opinion, and you respect me? And that those dynamics can happen anywhere. I mean, as for Econ Breakfast's leadership skills, I think Econ Breakfast is very scholarly, is very research oriented, has an obsessive tenaciousness that could be utilized elsewhere. But currently, as it's directed at you or directed at me, or
It's falling on deaf ears, except to the people you're harassing. Basically, I mean, I'm taking notice. The people you're targeting have been taking notice, and it's like you're trying to create a mental health response by going after people's, perceived insecurities or whatever, and then constantly targeting, calling brain garbage a sexual harasser, which is definitely not true. I think really you're just fixated on the sexual component of this, and trying to outlive your fantasies, and without overtly giving away that you are sexually attracted to us.
well, I had a Twitter account, and Mary Ang One, in like 2009, and I was bullied off of it. I chose Brain Garbage for its gender neutral name. I don't even typically use an adult picture of me because the nature of the climate of the sexual harassment that accompanies a woman who is a public figure, or a woman or a person perceived as a woman, is so severe that this gender neutralization that happens for professional reasons, Econ Breakfast, the Nick Lee persona, wants to completely violate that and overstep that. It doesn't have any sensitivity or nuance about understanding. Like, you're not being a good friend to your female allies if you completely overstep and override and push your misogyny agenda, or your trans misogyny agenda, or your gender harassment agenda. Which is funny that this person claims to be this trans rights proponent, but I think in a way we're kind of at a loggerheads as to, well, what are your responsibilities towards respect? I've asked you not to ever use the name Mary. And this continualizes, but what he's doing is he's casting me in the villainous archetype femme fatale that is seducing this object of attention, Brandon Farley, this highly charismatic young 32-year-old man. And so that is just going to have to, I don't know, we're going to have to deal with the repercussions of that, I guess. That you are...
I mean, this is a voice that isn't fading away anytime soon. He's been targeting me for over 8 months now, and as soon as I show any interest in another human being, he starts to target them, which is what has happened with Brain Garbage. And very deeply offensive to me because
So is this going to go to, like, his latest threat is he's taking economy blah blah blah, this parody account mocking this repetitive broken record Econ Breakfast, to a restraining order court based on his prejudice against the suspected author of this parody account, that the suspected author is a black male who's taller than 6 foot, and like, oh no. It's so racist, and this account, the parody account, is calling Econ Breakfast out for being racist against black men.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much right on the nose. Like, all of that is hyperbole and satire, but you really do get an understanding of what type of a predator Econ Breakfast is. Misogynistic, racial undertones. I wouldn't say that he's racist, but I would definitely say that he likes to provoke certain classes of people into reacting.
Well, and that does kind of lead into some of our suspicions that he might be a paid state agent. I mean, there was research and analysis that showed that certain maybe Russian-affiliated accounts or troll operations were trying to incite racial warfare. And say, for instance, Minnesota flew up in flames last night with riots, and that this race baiting and bullying and hyper-aggressive, inflaming tensions on both sides is a state agenda to destabilize America. And if that's what Econ Breakfast is doing for his version of radicalism, or maybe it's subconscious, maybe he doesn't even realize that that's what he's doing. Maybe he should be on notice that, like, oh, we're not falling for it. Like, what a cliche.
Yeah. I mean, even the Portland Police Bureau, whom he's tried to cry out to, is telling him now, all you have to do is just get off Twitter or stop talking about it, and it'll basically go away. I have nothing to say to Econ if he just does his regular thing, which what used to be posting protest videos, used to some light social commentary, talking about Antifa issues, trans issues. He even I would consider he used to be a human rights activist before he became detrimental to human rights and disability rights and all that other stuff.
Safety, housing, like harassing Farley in his housing is a violation of federal housing law. Furthermore, when Farley goes to the administrators of his building or his programs and lets him know that these people, like Econ Breakfast, Stalker, Munching Cakes, whomever, the Kill Farley squad, graffiti artists, are stalking, if your agencies and your housing administration don't protect you, they could be running afoul of federal laws to protect you. And it's just because the laws are in the books doesn't mean they'll be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But one should know, or one should educate oneself as to one's responsibilities and avoid those liabilities. That would be my advice to you, Econ Breakfast, is don't run the risk of accusations of cyber stalking or trespass or harassment of any kind. And maybe anyone you know to be a militant, for instance, this Antifa Grim with, is it 3 M's? Mm-hmm. Like, block them, because you're fueling their aggression that is transgressive, that is graffiti, that is death threats. You are fueling death threats, Econ Breakfast, and you, Nick Lee, and you need to stop that.
Or at least denounce it when it happens to me.
Yeah.
Maybe even at your whim, like you luring people to my apartment by coming over here with Disney Princess music and basically doxing my address. And since then, people have, basically right after that, people started to vandalize my place. You take no responsibility for what you've done as a media person, as someone in the media who can,
I read the book about Stieg Larsson, the author of The Girl Who with the Dragon Tattoo is how it's translated for the English market, Män som hatar kvinnor, Men Who Hate Women. It's about misogyny. Stieg Larsson was an anti-racist researcher in Sweden, and because he was an anti-racist researcher, helped with the expo.se, categorizing the different racist movements within Sweden, he would have to evacuate his apartment because bullets would be flying in the top of his window. He had to jump from hotel to hotel, change apartment number. We don't even know, for instance, that his heart attack wasn't induced. He could have been, we don't know why he died so young. And it's like there are conspiracy theories about his death, and he was living on the edge. He was a chain smoker in poor health and a workaholic writer. But that kind of terror of an artist, you don't have to directly cause someone's death to indirectly cause someone's death. And the stalking and the harassment is detrimental to someone's health.
I mean, Econ does have blood on his hands, whether he chooses to believe it or not. I've suffered as a result, and might not have been directly inflicted by Econ. I mean, he might not be the one who's pepper spraying me in public, but it is his influence.
Or leading to even this frivolous prosecution that'll probably be dropped by the Portland police by red lighting or green lighting all those militants to pursue and harass you. He's contributing to a framing setup. And at that point, Econ Breakfast is a part of the police state, the very apparatus that he claims to object to. And that's where I see all these like bourgeois, upper crust, elitist Antifas celebrating the persecution of the police state, like of me or him or whomever.
When is Antifa going to denounce Econ Breakfast? Is maybe a theme we should discuss at some point. I think it should be done.
Oh, right.